My girlfriend says my gift wasn't birthday gift worthy, and it was just an everyday gift. This was 15 years ago. Back then, I was dating a girl who turned out to be much more than she led on at first. I'd been dating this girl for about 5 months, and things were going great. We hung out a lot, and I've got to say, I really enjoyed her company. She wasn't just a girlfriend, she was someone I really liked chilling with. Her birthday was coming, and I really wanted to do something awesome for her. She had told me a couple of times how much she wanted to go to a hockey game at the Bell Centre to see a Montreal Canadiens game. I figured this was the best opportunity to see that she finally got to go. After asking around, I was able to get tickets to see the Montreal Canadiens play against the visiting Pittsburgh Penguins. At the time, Mario Lemieux was still playing with Jaromir Jagr. I don't know if I pronounced that right, by the way. So not only would she get to see the Canadiens game, she'd also get to see two of the most famous players at the time live. The day of her birthday comes, we go out for dinner. After dessert, I hand her an envelope with a thoughtful greeting card I knew she'd like, along with the game tickets. She rips the envelope open, doesn't even read the greeting card, holds up the hockey tickets, and disappointingly asks, "What's this?" I then explain to her how she's always wanted to go see a hockey game, and how the Pittsburgh Penguins would be the visiting team, and how I got some really good seats a few rows up behind the players' bench, and how I spared no expense. She was not impressed in the slightest. I appreciate the thought, but this is the kind of gift I'd expect to get any other day. This is my birthday. I expected something shiny. I paused for a moment because I honestly thought she was trolling me or just wanted to make me sweat for a second. But no, she was dead serious. She moved the tickets into her purse and then told me she'd give me a chance to make it up to her. You're probably thinking she was right to be disappointed because, hey, hockey tickets, right? Well, truth be told, in Montreal, a night at a Canadiens hockey game is by no means a cheap date. The tickets themselves went for $350 for the pair. Montreal loves its hockey team, and tickets are hard to come by. This drives up the price. Not to mention that these were great frickin' seats. The cost of parking is astronomical, not to mention the cost of anything from the concessions is a pure rip-off. I'm crapping you not, 4 hot dogs, 2 fries, and 2 Cokes go for about $50 Canadian. So adding it all up, it's a very expensive night of about $450 to $500. From then on, the relationship took a hard left turn. Her attitude changed, she wasn't the same person anymore. I was truly turned off by her lack of appreciation for the gift, and truly, I started giving less and less of a crap. I broke it off with her, and I was upset that it was over. Up until the birthday fiasco, things were amazing, and I truly believed she would be the one. 2 weeks go by, and I get a call from her mother. It seems that she liked me from the couple of times she and I had met. She seemed to be genuinely concerned about how things went bad between her daughter and I. So we talked for a bit, and this is how I got to understand where my ex-girlfriend's sense of entitlement came from. The mother asked if I was doing okay, and I replied honestly that I was upset and hurt that things turned bad, and how I was happy until things changed. I expressed my disappointment at her reaction toward the gift. Mother asked whether I would go back with her if things would be as they were in the beginning, to which I said yes. Well, if you want her back, you need to show her how much you love her. Get her a ring. She'll take you back if you do that. I felt as if I suddenly sobered up from a night of drinking. Instant clarity. I conjured up all of my willpower to keep myself from telling her to F herself and take her daughter with her. I simply replied with, "Thank you for wanting to help me with this. I have a lot to think about. I will surely be speaking to you soon." Believe me, not yelling was not easy. I ended the call. It was hard to get myself to calm down after that. It took me a few days to let all of that anger boil away. My ex is the jerk, right? If you think you deserve daily gifts for the value of several $100 each, you live on a truly different planet than the narrator does. Honestly, even if you are a millionaire who can afford to be this way, who wants to be just buying so much disposable crap all the time? Cook me a slap-up spaghetti meal for my birthday and I'll be a damn happy man. Assuming that she really did like hockey and wanted to see those particular teams, how is this not a fantastic present? An experience that you've said you really want to try at a cost that nobody could really turn their nose up at. And let me just reread how long you guys were dating before the incident here. 5 months? Are you kidding me? Sounds like she did you a huge favor by sounding the jerk alarm early. Also, the fact that her mother thought the solution to this was to get hitched? To tie your wagon to someone who clearly expects the vast majority of your time and finances going forward to be devoted to material things for her? Things that she'll be temporarily fascinated by, until 24 hours roll by for the next gift, by the way. Nope, no thank you, dodged a bullet there. I do work here. Do I need to stand behind a counter to prove it to you? I just got home from work and this man really got to me. It was a busy day for returns at the car rental company I work for. This also means that there are many empty spaces in our parking lot because of lots of people renting cars. So I see 2 cars pull up in the return area and one of them pulls forward into one of the spaces reserved for luxury cars for rent, facing the rental counter in order to entice customers. It really irks me when people park here since there's a solid line demarcating the end of the return area. But they all do this all the time, so I just put up with it. I go to the second car first because he stopped in the return area and I was feeling spiteful. They returned their car normally, I scanned the barcode on the windshield, addressed them by their full name, and then walked them around the vehicle. Then I ask for keys and record the odometer and the fuel level. My machine prints them a receipt and they're on their way. Bear in mind that I'm in full uniform, which has been described to me as resembling a pit crew member, and I have a handheld scanner and printer. After I finish with this first customer, I go over to the car parked in the wrong place and scan its barcode as I walk around the vehicle. I say, "Keith, last name?" his full name, and he says, "Yeah," warily and giving me a suspicious look. I then ask, "Keys are in the vehicle?" And he says, "No, they're in my pocket." So I say, "Could I grab them from you, please?" And he says, "I don't give my keys to nobody," and storms off into the building to get in line at the counter. So I go behind the counter and install myself at a computer, checking the number of returns for the day and the manifest to prove to him that I'm actually an employee. He still waits in line until my coworker has just finished renting a car. He walks up to the counter and my coworker says, "Hi, how can I help you today?" And he mumbles, "Returning." My coworker says, "Sure. My friend here will be able to help you out with that. He'll go get you a receipt." I run outside and check the odometer and fuel, and I go back inside and shove his receipt at him, not waiting or caring whether he had been charged the correct amount. I turn on my heels and run back inside. Screw him, I've never been so disrespected by a customer. Okay. Look, I have to be honest here, as someone who's both worked in many service jobs and read a lot of horror stories about the worst sort of encounters here, this doesn't stand out to me as being a particularly brutal one in the history of customer-worker encounters. I mean, sure, the guy is a weird and surly jerk, but this is like par for the course in most hospitality jobs. Still, I'll admit, these incidents do leave you fuming even when they happen every day. I just think our author needed a little more time to get over it. I just think that if this is the worst a customer has ever talked down to you, then you've been damn lucky in your employment up to this point in your life, my friend. I will say that there's something very strange going on with this guy who actively refuses getting the same service but sooner from someone in clear and obvious uniform. Was he just super wary of scammers or something? Like to a paranoid extent? We'll never know. I'm not interviewing, I work here. I'm so glad to be able to finally share my experiences. A few years ago, I'd worked for the company for over 5 years as a database administrator and a team lead for the database group. Over the previous year, we'd been working remotely, so a few of the newer hires on the other teams in IT didn't know me by sight yet. We recently needed to hire a few more developers for the web team. I made it known to the management team that we need more developers with SQL experience, so the decision was made that I would sit in on the interviews rather than the others in my team. The day for the interview comes around and I'm in my office. I print out the resume for today's contestants. I'm the first to show up at the conference room with printouts in hand and have a seat. About 2 minutes later, a junior web developer and a business analyst walk in. Since I've never met them before, I stood up, shook their hands, and introduced myself. Before I could say who I am, they started. The business analyst said, "A little bit underdressed for the interview, aren't we?" I say, "Huh? I'm in a blue jeans and polo, normal attire for the office." The dev chirps in, "That's okay. Do you have copies of your resume?" "Yeah, I have the one." I hadn't caught on yet. "Wow, you people are never prepared." "Excuse me? How do you expect to get hired if you dress like that and don't bring copies of your resume?" "Ah, I think I see the problem. You see, and then the dev cuts me off. I think you're the problem. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to leave. We're canceling your interview. My mouth drops open. I hold up my work ID. Do you know what this is? The business analyst and developers' mouths fall open, and all they could say was, yeah, that's right. I work here. Now that I have your attention, like I was trying to say, I'm the database administrator. I've worked here for 5 years. I know we've never met, but if this is how you treat future employees, I'll have to chat with our development manager. I'm sorry, can we start over, please? I do have a sick sense of humor, so I realize that I now have ammunition for years to come. About 2 minutes later, and the development manager shows up with the first contestant, the actual interviewee, and the games begin. I did have a little chat with the development manager about what happened, and we had a great laugh about it. Every time I had a meeting with those two, I always hold up my badge and announce that, I still work here, by the way. Am I the jerk? Ha! Man, it did not take long for the small amounts of power that these guys had to go right to their heads, did it? And no, honestly, if this is how they behave to potential new hires, then I don't think anyone would call you a jerk for putting them in their place from time to time. And normally, I hate it when other people talk about putting others in their place, because it implies a bit of a disrespectful attitude to one's co-workers, but in this case, these two were actively making calls based on no information and needed to have that kind of decision-making cut short. The pandemic and those years of working from home really led into this situation where no one recognized each other. At least this one entertaining thing is something to be thankful for from the time. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. A woman wants me to forget my tea so she can privately use a shared kitchen. I work in the marketing department of a small cosmetics company. I'm not what you would call a higher up in the company, but I'm not entry-level either. Earlier today, I went into the office's common area and kitchen to make a cup of tea, Earl Grey if you care. A woman talking on the phone came into the room as I was waiting on the kettle to boil. I recognize her as one of our new hires from sales. I doubt she's been here long enough to get her first check. She was talking loudly, but I ignored her. It's a somewhat loud office, so it wasn't a big deal for someone to make a little noise. A minute later, she says into the phone, "Hold on, I need some privacy." And then she turns to me and says, "Excuse me, sorry, I'm on a private call. I need you to leave." I'm confused at first, then what she says registers. I get this surprised smile on my face, the kind that says, "Are you fricking joking, mate?" I tell her, "No." She gives me the look. Her mouth is open, eyes wide. How dare I use the common area for what it's meant for? She doesn't even say anything. I point to the kettle and I tell her I'm making tea. She tells me that this is an important medical call. I tell her the kitchen isn't a private room and that she can go into an empty conference room or to her car if the matter is that sensitive. She says she doesn't like the chairs in the conference room and it's too cold to walk out to her car. I shrug. She eventually gets that I'm not leaving until I've had my tea and she stomps off to a conference room. I hate being a narc, but god damn it, just let me make my tea in peace. So I decide to walk down to sales and chat with her supervisor, whom I know fairly well. About the time I finish relaying the experience, the woman in question walks in, sees me, and stops. I point her out to the supervisor and pat him on the back, walk back to my office and type this up. Am I enjoying this too much? Am I the jerk? Yeah, I don't know who this employee thought they were, but at least their justice was swift. I honestly don't know if their statement about it being an important medical call was real, if they're going to be that picky about the place they take it. Maybe I'm too suspicious though. But yeah, no matter what the call is, it's by no means obligatory for everyone to clear out of a public space to accommodate you, and especially not if you do it that rudely. Maybe it might have been more understandable if the other rooms in question were occupied, or if she had just asked more politely to begin with. This just sort of comes across as Her Majesty rudely making demands that her co-workers are under no obligation to comply with. That's what rubs me up the wrong way about this sort of thing. "Hi, sorry, do you mind if I take this in here for a few minutes? Oh, you're making tea? Let me duck out for a second, since I'm on my mobile phone." I don't get people sometimes. A male Karen yells at me for being in his spot. Fine, it's my spot now. I work from home full-time and rarely drive unless I'm grocery shopping or out for an appointment. In my complex, there are non-reserved spots and reserved spots in the underground garage, all of which are not assigned. As long as you have a reserved sticker on your vehicle, any of the reserved spots, which are all labeled reserved, are fair game. I have a non-reserved sticker because it's $40 cheaper than the reserved pass. I was coming back from an appointment and turned into my neighbor's reserved spot so that I could back my car into the open, non-reserved spot behind me. Lo and behold, male Karen in his rusty 2007 RAV4 starts honking at me for being in his spot and telling me that I can't park there because I don't have a reserved sticker. I told him I was only backing out. I probably should have let it go, but his Karen-ness annoyed me so much. As I was getting on the elevator, I quickly realized he only wanted to park there because it was right next to the elevator. A light bulb went off in my head, and I made my way to the rental office. It's in the same building. I asked to upgrade my parking pass. It's an extra $40 I'll be shelling out, but it's worth the petty revenge. I'm waiting for him to leave for work tomorrow so I can move my car into his spot and leave it there for God knows how long. There are perks to being fully remote. I doubt there'll be much of an update given there's more than one reserved spot, but the day I hear from the property manager is the day I'll know I've got his butt. In short, male Karen yells at me for being in his spot, so I upgrade my parking pass and leave my car in said spot. Ah, sweet victory. The narrator searched hard and fruitlessly for any updates to this story, as there's nothing more satisfying than a Karen or Ken explosion and Alt F4ing when they realize they've lost. But sadly, that need will have to go unfulfilled, as, true to the author's guess, the aforementioned jerk was never heard from again. Still, we can only imagine that this needlessly territorial chimpanzee was in a spitting impotent fury for a few minutes before being forced to face reality and go through the indignity of, finding a different spot, implied by the author to be in ready supply in the garage. Okay, yes, this story is petty as all heck, but no less fun for that. Thank you for sharing. I'm not allowed into my own company? Whatever you say, world's worst employee. This was back in, I think, around 2010. My dad was part owner of a large construction business in a Middle Eastern country. Note that we were expatriates, hence possibly the confusion. I was a teenager just hanging around one evening in my dad's office room. So the office is set up in such a way that the entire finance department is on one floor, right next to where the owners have their offices. So it's very common for the accountants to be passing by on their way to the canteen. It was a Saturday, so there weren't many employees, just a few workers and a couple of accountants. I was just sitting in my dad's office playing some games when I thought it'd be a good idea to go and get some snacks. I went to the shops, got what I want, and as I returned, a person stopped me. Now I know most of the people who worked there, and as I didn't recognize him, I thought it was a new employee and he just wanted to talk. He asks me for an ID. I froze, waited for a few seconds, not knowing what he meant, and just stood there, smiling like an idiot. This must have annoyed him as he went on a rant about how all employees must carry the ID card. The card was also used as an access key to the office area. Now, what he didn't think of was that we were already inside the office building, so I guess it flew straight over his head as to how I could have gotten in there with the security outside. He keeps going, not screaming, just assertive anger, as the conference room, which is at the other side of the hallway, opens up, and my dad and a few of the other employees walk out. They see what's going on, but he doesn't hear them. Huge mistake. At this point, I just realized that he had mistaken me for an employee. Yes, I know, I was slow. I just waited for him to get over himself as he said he'd consider this a discipline problem. That's when our IT technician interfered and explained to him what's going on. Everyone just laughed it off, and the dude had the most sheepish grin I've ever seen as he apologized to me. My dad later told me he was just appointed as an accounts manager the previous week. He was fired a few months later for some other issues. This was absolute gold in the office until he left. I've had the pleasure of seeing him at many functions after this and would always go and shake a hand while having the biggest crap-eating grin you can imagine. If there is one recurring factor in some of today's stories, it's lower-level employees getting way too big for their britches and going on a power-high interrogation of supposed subordinates. Before being reminded of their place in the universe, let this be a lesson to all of us. If we see someone of a lower station doing something outside their station, maybe ask a few questions first and see if they're truly doing wrong, or if they're in fact actually someone who has every right to be there. And if they are accidentally there by mistake, maybe think about whether chewing them out for it is going to be something that makes you look like a complete donkey. This basic lesson in human decency was brought to you by Am I the Jerk? Have a nice day, folks. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.